Hello, today I want to talk to you, Daniel, naturopath. I wanted to talk to you today about EMF, um, electromagnetic frequencies and pollution, EMF pollution. Um, well, depending on where you live, living in a small apartment with hundreds of Wi-Fi signals all lined up in on your computer, you're definitely being affected. Whether you know it or not, it's fine, but it's happening, and the blood is changing. It's modifying the blood. It's thickening it. All these things are real. So it ends up having overall effects on your body that you can't detect. Um, some people are conscious enough to feel that, electrosensitive people. And so they should not be shunned because they're actually just our little detectors. You need that. I mean, even the bee community or any community of animals has like the detector sentinel. So these are our sentinels as people who are electrically, they have this sensitivity. So they're letting us know something is happening here. Whether or not we feel we're connected to it or not, it's still happening. And so over time, these things will gate crash our lives, meaning, 63, 64, here comes the cancer, here comes the medicine, here comes the diabetes, here comes this. And you're like, wow, okay. One of the ways to overcome EMF is by the principle of reflection. The principle of reflection is to send the signal back. And one of the things that we get into is like, oh, if we buy something, we should be able to put our cell phone inside of it. And then therefore, if the cell phone doesn't work, therefore we're not getting any rays. And so this is a working technology. So there is stuff like that. There's fabrics that you can put over your cell phone and it won't get any signal, stuff like that. But the problem is you can't live an integrated life that way. You'd have to wear a tinfoil hat everywhere. And, it's like, that's not the way to do it. There's a way to do things which is integrated. And so what happens is the integrated way is that you're going to get rid of 90% of all this stuff, but 10% you're going to have, and that's the way it is. And so maybe there's a certain type of percentage which allows for you to fight and strengthen, but it's not overwhelming, and it's allowing you, just like with homeopathy or all these type of things where like even in the Bible or something, it's like they give like small percentage of poison to people that were going to be working around snakes or in regions with snakes, because this would allow them to not, to become immune to it, immunity. So there is something to be said about not fully pushing out all things perfectly. Like maybe there's a reason that we need about 10% of this stuff to be hitting us to where we can, our bodies can find its own natural way to adapt and overcome. So, and you can't block it all out anyway. I mean, you'd have to live like, some hermit crazy and, with like all these type of technologies, and it would just be a little bit insane. So what I'm proposing is something simple. One thing that's important is a bed net canopy. So you put this over your bed. It costs about $1,000, but it lasts forever. And, it's woven with about 20% by weight of silver thread. They can use other threads like steel and different threads. Silver thread is the best thread, and a lot of this stuff is made in Switzerland, which is interesting. I think it's made by elves, but anyway. And so this you put around your bed. It not only protects you from spiders, mosquitoes, and all this other kind of thing that happen in the bed, but it also protects you from the waves, the electromagnetic waves. So you can buy, testers and equipment to reveal the differences. But what it's doing is just reflecting the signal that's coming in to the cell phone. You can still use your cell phone inside of one of these, and you're still getting signal. You don't get as good of signal, but you're still getting signal. But it's like I said, that 10% that's coming through, that's the full signal you're getting anyway. It's just, you have to imagine that the world we're in, they're sending out these signals 90% more than they need to be. Like they're that strong. And so when we come back down to 10%, we're just at a norm. Basically we're still receiving, but we're cutting down that obtuseness, And so that's what's happening. So a bed canopy is one of the best because you sleep there. Then on top of that, one of the most powerful things, the second most or equally powerful, is underwear, especially for men. but maybe for women like a bra or something, but you need something to protect the organs that are the most external, the most exposed, like breast cancer, prostate cancer, and all of this like testosterone and fertility problems like coming through the male side and the female side. They're aiming, this stuff is destroying these areas. I mean, the testicles hang outside the body. They're like completely vulnerable, more vulnerable than anything on the woman, actually. And so we have to be careful. So, and how much is it? What, $30 for a pair of EMF underwear, boxers? You know, get a few of them, rotate them. You know, like there's a way to do this. You know, you just have to know about it, and you'll feel the difference. That's the other thing. You'll feel the difference in your sex life, in your erections. Anything that's good by its nature, if it's really working, there will be some intuitive signals happening where people will typically start to understand that it's helping them. Okay, and these things are not they're integrated. I mean, a bra, I mean, you can never see that. You know what I mean? Like, there's just ways to do things. I mean, and it can even be a bra pads, you know, that you can keep putting in different bras. Oh, I don't know. Like, there's so many, I mean, and all this stuff exists, so I'm not just making up stuff. These things exist already. I haven't looked into the bras, but, like, I know they exist. And so the underwear exists, too, the boxers, stuff like that. So these are important. I wear two. That way you really keep out a lot of it. And I noticed the difference immediately. Like, and it's never changed. Like, you know, the erections are much stronger, and they've just never went back to the way they were. That's powerful. It's just knowing about it. So EMF is important. You can also, you have smart meters on your home. There's these, you know, $30 you can buy on Amazon or wherever, and they fit on your smart meter guard. You know, these are these meters that are down underneath your mains power that send out signals. They don't need, you know, we have technology to send signals without any interference for, you know, since radar we've had that. So this is very cheap technology. A battery in there could have worked. But no, they end up making these into like staccato, super powerful signal emissions. So don't think, oh, well, they're not going to be able to get their emissions back at the headquarters. No, they are. It's all going to work. It's going to cut off that 90% is what I'm saying. And so, and you're allowed to do this. You're allowed to protect yourself from these things. Don't let any law try to tell you that you're not allowed to do that. That's ridiculous. And they know that you're allowed to do it. That's why they won't push the issue. But you have to figure it out. It's your freedom that's at stake. You know, it's just like with everything else. If you don't, you know, stand up for yourself, then they're not going to. So, you know, these little units, you can put them on the front. And because it's grounds, because it's a mains power, that's what that box is, where you have your electric meter or whatever, that grounds the unit. And so the signals that come out through the front are blocked by the reflection, and the signals that come out the back are blocked because it's grounding the signal. So you really are pushing out both sides. Costs $30. Just have a think of it. That's it. Doesn't affect anything. No one's going to come knocking at your house. Like, hey, what's going on? Nobody's going to figure anything out. It's just your spiritual life is just going to get better because you're figuring things out, you know? And, you know, for people who don't meditate, who are not in this type of way of thinking, they might not realize that these things are harming them. But when you start moving into anything of that nature, you start to realize things are happening. So, any other things that would be, those are the key. There's tons of other things you can do, you know, like sheets, and you can, you know, do that so that when you travel, you have a sheet and you can lay in it and block some of it. Now, you can't block, I mean, there's a lot of magnetic energy too. It's not just electromagnetic waves and frequencies. It's also magnetic waves, electrical waves. Some of those are harder to block. You can test your house. You can see where the ones that are the most, you know, like if you're behind some breaker switch, of course, that's going to be radiating like this. And in order to stop that kind of energy, it's different. It's an electrical kind of like magnetic energy, and that you can't use the principle of reflection. That you have to use the principle of, I forget the name scientifically, but you're basically trying to, you know, thwart the waves into taking another path. Because they're going to be taking a path regardless. They're not going to reflect. But you can kind of feed them into a certain path, you know, and they'll choose that path because they can go that way and still make their way through, you know, by the nature of the magnetic frequency. So those technologies exist too, you know, like sometimes it even looks just like a painting, you know, that you put up behind that wall. And then it's going to veer that out and make it go around. I mean, it's going to concentrate that energy somewhere else, or on the edges. So there is a need to, do things right, but there is a way. There's a way. As far as electrical circuits, there's a way to do that too for your house. I mean, but that's more complicated and you need a little bit more work. But one of the things to know is that you can turn your house is like a breaker switch, and it's like a permanent electrical cage, and you can turn that off. You can build into your breaker switch like a master switch, which only brings electricity when it's called on. And so there's not all this static electricity happening through the house at all times. It's like breaking each communication that's not being actively used. So there is smart things that are not that expensive, but it's just knowing how to do it and calling the right people and getting these things worked out. So that is a few ideas which help to clarify the mind for people who've never studied this stuff, and just to give it like a very easy to understand. That's what my goal is here. I brought the transdermal magnesium, I always do, because it's so helpful not only with healing the body and magnesium, but for the nervous system. And so the nervous system being well taken care of through transdermal magnesium is a way to, at least make up for what's happening to you through not combining that with internal deficiency. That's being as strong as you can face with these, this pollution that happens to us. So anyway, that's what I got on EMF. There's tons more that could be said probably on EMF, and tons more different applications with computers and, what you can do and how you can protect yourself, etc. But that's pretty much it. I mean, one of the key ones I will finish with is phone. Turn your phone off. Leave it off all the time. Whenever you sit down and you're at a cafe, turn it back on. But when you're walking with it, always off. Not airport, off. Just get used to it. Your life will change in about 3 weeks and you'll be used to it. You'll be like, wow, I should have done that so long ago. And only turn it on when you need it. Like when you sit down, you're somewhere, you're at home. Okay, leave it on. It's far away from you, but never put it on you when it's on. So that's one of the key things. It's affecting the blood. It's changing the bloodstream. It's changing the thickness of the blood, the coagulation, the hormone system. Like, don't go there. So, and it's so easy to avoid. And you don't have to be reached at all seconds of the day, even if you have a business, even if you have this. I have a business, and I thought, oh, you can't do that. You're supposed to be available. No, you're not. And people email me and they leave messages and I get back to them. So anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.